All right, good morning. I'm Nancy Creed, president of the Springfield Regional Chamber, and I am joined this morning by Mary Ann Schelb. She is the Director of Business Development for the Western Mass Market of JGS Life Care. Good morning, and thanks for having coffee with me this morning, Mary Ann.
Good morning. A pleasure to see you. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you as well. So for those of you watching this morning, tell us a little bit about JGS Life Care.
JGS Life Care is a campus of care. It's a continuum of care. It's 23 acres right in Long Meadow, Converse Street, which people don't realize how big it is. It's 23 acres. You can see like the nursing home and the rehab from the street, but it goes far back, and it's got everything from the rehab, the nursing home. It's got Roots House Assisted Living, Genesis Independent Living, which is a subsidized housing, and Wernick Adult Day Health, as well as Spectrum Home Health Hospice, including palliative care. People know, I think, the Levitt Family Jewish Home and the Sossin Center for Rehabilitation most, just because it's right up front.
Now, you don't necessarily have to be Jewish to take advantage of your services.
No, as a matter of fact, I remember when I was interviewing, I had to disclose that. I said, I got to make sure that, I don't have to be Jewish to get hired. And they said, no, not at all. As a matter of fact, we serve all faiths. So yes, we were founded on Jewish principles, and we are guided by the Jewish faith, which is good because they really care for their elders. But really, we serve all faiths. And as a matter of fact, unfortunately, now our population is a little bit down. So we have mostly non-Jewish people here, which, we still, like I said, it's based on Jewish values, but serving all faiths.
What does that mean? Because I noticed your mission said it's based on Jewish tradition and values. What actually does that mean?
So in the Jewish tradition, as well as some other traditions also, they really care for their elders and they put their elders first. So they really, when you were growing up, and I'm Italian, so we kind of did the same, where we cared for our elders. We took our elders in. So when they started back in 1912, with, the first 13, the Daughters of Zion, what happened is they had a home that they actually had their elders come in and they cared for them. So that never went away. We just continue to do that. So we take elders in and we make sure we care for them like they were our family.
So you left JGS for a bit, came back about a year ago in the middle of a pandemic. What drew you to come back?
So I think that you really see who people are during crisis. I think that you have an idea of who people are when when you're there and when you think you know someone, and then you see how somebody reacts during a crisis. And JGS has social media like everybody else does, so I would follow. And when I left on very good terms, and I kept in touch with people here. So, I was friends with, people on Facebook, or I would, I think I had liked the company, and, the company that, acquired JGS Legacy Life Care, Chelsea Jewish. So I saw all of that and I was following. And to see what they did when supermarkets, basically you couldn't go shopping, you didn't want people to go out. They fed their employees. They had basically a grocery store across the hall from where my office is right now. They brought in groceries. They gave you a grocery bag, a little JGS shopping bag, and they let you go in and pick food out to bring home to your family. They let people stay here. If people were afraid to go home to give it to their families, we put people up here. And that was, I say we, because it's me now, but it wasn't then. When I saw all of this happening, and then I'd, reach out to my friends and I'd be like, wow, I'm very impressed with what's happening. And, when the opportunity presented itself, it was absolutely the right choice to come back.
So you talk a little bit about JGS during the pandemic, and I know they had a difficult time throughout it. What surprised you about the community the most?
What surprised me is how I saw everybody come together. Again, you really get to know people during a crisis, and they either come together or fall apart. And I watched too many organizations fall apart, where everybody here was the epitome of the word team. It was all in, it was all together, it was all supportive, and what can we do to help you, and We wanted to make sure that you're safe. They made sure, so a lot of people during COVID didn't necessarily want to work, right? They got scared,
Mhm.
especially healthcare, right? So a lot of organizations had to have agency in the building because they didn't have enough of their own staff. We had all of our own staff. What we didn't want is we didn't want somebody to go from building to building to building thinking that they would carry COVID with them. So what we did is we made sure, again, I say we, right? It was them. What they did is they made sure they had no agency in the building whatsoever. And it was all
Wow.
their own staff. And that was huge, huge for them. And it made a really big difference.
And I think that's a testament to the organization's leadership.
Yes, absolutely. And what one thing right now, they are a pioneer. As a matter of fact, we are mandating that every person, every employee gets vaccinated, unless they've got, like a medical reason but I think for the safety of the residents' families, the employees' families, and then the general population. I mean, we've got Michael's Cafe here on the premises, which currently isn't open to the public, but normally it is, and people come in and out. So in order to really do the right thing, I think we are one of the first ones that's mandating the vaccines, which I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I can imagine. So how have you changed throughout this whole year and throughout this whole pandemic?
Besides putting on COVID-19 pounds, I mean, I don't know. I think ultimately you really see what's important. You really looked at, I've never spent such quality time. I have 4 kids total, 2 still at home, and they were home. They're in college, but college was all virtual. So they were home, but never spent so much quality time with my kids, which was very interesting and very different from the Zoom world we live in. I never worked from home. I always was in, healthcare is a little bit different. You can't do a lot of the healthcare from home. So we were always here. And when people are, telling me, they're bored, they have cabin fever, they're this, they're that, it's like, I was fortunate enough to be able to come to work. I know people lost their jobs. I know businesses had a really tough time, but I was fortunate enough. I looked at myself where I was lucky. I was one of the lucky ones that was able to come to work every day and able to make a difference in people's lives.
And how do you think you make that difference?
I think that being genuine to who I am, I think that just is the core of who I am. So being genuine and genuinely trying to help people who are presenting me with a problem they think they have. They need a solution to something. I think that when COVID hit, there was some people, I'm not going to bring my mom or dad to rehab or assisted living, and I think some people had no choice. They had to. So we needed to make sure, listen, you need to be okay with the fact that, and trust that we're going to take good care. And this is how we're going to do it. We put a safety video up. It was on our website for, I don't know how long. I don't know if it's necessarily still there where everybody's trying to get back to normal. We tried to do what we could. We had a rabbi, right? So Rabbi Deborah Jacobson, she actually was awarded one of the Healthcare Hero Awards for.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, she was amazing. She went into everybody's room. If there was, somebody that was really having a tough time, she would actually do FaceTime with the families. And so the families really felt connected with their family members here, because it was hard. It was hard, but I really think that they made a difference. And I really think they made it very personal as opposed to just going through the motions. It was very personal to them here, all the employees, which I think the families felt.
And how do you think, looking back on the last year, are there lessons learned that you think the organization will continue, or how does this impact JGS moving forward?
I think everybody looks, with a keen eye at their practices and protocols. And I think that we tweak and we're always learning how to do better. That's one thing that the affiliation with Legacy Life Care and Chelsea Jewish, they've really brought that to the table on how to excel and do better. JGS always had a great foundation in the community, but when Legacy Life Care came on board, it's almost like this, consulting firm that now we have reference to. So to have that in our back pocket, they're always looking on how to better something and always looking to see, if something went wrong, why did it go wrong? How can we fix it? How can we do better the next time? What can we do? They have, trainings, they offer a lot for education, which is something more than I've seen in other organizations.
And talk to me about that affiliation, because I'm not sure everyone is really aware of what that is.
Sure. So a couple years back when I had left, it wasn't very soon after that, Chelsea Jewish, which is an organization which we were very familiar with because they had one of the only greenhouses in Massachusetts. And when we were building the Sossin Center, they were the go-to for the information. So we were very familiar with them. They were very familiar with us. And then Legacy Life Care was formed from JGS Life Care and Chelsea Jewish. And it almost formed, like I said, this consulting firm where if there was guidance that was needed, Legacy Life Care was there to offer it. So Adam and his father, Barry Berman. So Adam and Barry Berman had started this. And really, I think, like I said, the influence they have over all of their entities, and they have more out east. Of course, they, eventually may, spread out to the Berkshires, which I told them, I said, I'd be more than happy to help cover, from here to the Berkshires. And most of them are out east, but every single one of them with the affiliation and what they have to offer, it just makes them better. It just really pushes them to be better.
Now let's talk about you for a little bit. So you have an extensive background in elder care, and I'm curious what drives that passion.
So I love working with the elder community because they have a story to tell. They have lived through a lot more than I have ever lived through, and they always are willing to share the information. So I love to listen to the stories they have and learn from them. And a lot of times elders seem lonely because nobody really wants to just listen to the stories that they have. So to give them that outlet, because I want to hear what they have to say. I love when people first come and they're like, oh, I think I've got to put my mom in a place. And it's like, in a place, what is that? That sounds terrible. Where are you putting them? Well, I said that, they'd always stay at home. And it's like, at home, are they alone? Are they lonely? It's like, you want to make sure that you can really, have them excel and have them thrive. And it was like my mother did the same thing. I loved my mother and my father's stories of when they were growing up. We look back at pictures still to this day, both of them have since passed. But I remember, and I tried to do the Italian thing, you bring mom in, and that wasn't even the right thing to do. The right thing to do was to bring her into assisted living where she thrived. She was social. I have 4 kids. And having to try to go to cheerleading and soccer and baseball and robotics and still try to have a relationship with my mom at home, who is now basically alone still. So what was the difference of her living alone or being at my home with a false sense of community, but still being alone? So the best thing was to move her into an assisted living and watch her have so much fun and, watch her. I can't talk right now. I've got to go to happy hour. And it's like, okay. So, yeah.
So what's your story? What do you think your story will be?
My story I learned from my mother, and it literally is the epitome of who I am and what I do. And if I'm not having fun, I change what I'm doing. I want to make sure that I live life with passion and really with purpose and having fun. If I'm not having fun, I do change what I'm doing.
So I was in preparation for this, of course, I was Facebook stalking you. And I noticed that I found an interview that you did where you love sports cars. And this past weekend, you were at Watkins, Glen for car racing. So tell me about that.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I know it's a little strange. So my background is a little strange. If I look at, spirituality and it's very mixed. It's a mixed bag for sure. but racing is something that I am very passionate about. We love, we've always got an exotic car of sorts that we will, tool around on the racetrack. Autocrossing, not necessarily on a track with the other cars, because then I could get hit and I could wreck my car. So that's probably not something I do. Although we will do trainings on a track with other cars, but not just like what I was watching. But oh my gosh, we got on the track. It was kind of a misty day. I don't know if people weren't going because it was going to rain, but it was an IMSA race and it was with prototypes and it was with some really nice cars. So we went up to this, turn 10 terrace, which I don't think we were supposed to necessarily sit at, but we went up. I'm like, just come on. My husband's like, well, I'll follow you, but if we get yelled at. So we went up, we sat, perfect view of the racetrack. And then I've never been evacuated because of lightning. I've off of a racetrack, had to sit in our cars for half an hour. We drove around because the racetrack is huge. We got so close to the track and you could just park there. I walked down to basically a fence and then the track. My heart, when the race cars went by, your whole body vibrated. Yeah, there's something about racing that both my husband and I really enjoy. So that was fun. That, as a matter of fact, we called our son. We had him tape it, so you could see our little Jeep in the because it was televised. You could see our vehicle in the tape. It was very fun, but we love it. Yeah,
Is that a love you got from your family, or like where did that just kind of pop?
So my sister, when I was young, maybe just a teenager, used to autocross Porsches. And at the time, you would just sign a waiver and you could bring someone with you. So I had my own little helmet and I'd get in, and I just, ever since she brought me, that was it. That was it. She's always been, an exotic car fan. She unfortunately poisoned me, and now I'm an exotic car fan. And yeah, we just love it. Yeah, so it was a very early age that I started to really enjoy it, and I've been doing it, ever since. I've had my own car to race ever since I was maybe 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're also into holistic health. So we talk about car racing and holistic, and those two don't seem to go together. So tell me about all of that and how you can incorporate that into not only your personal life, but into your work life.
Right. So I've always had a side hustle where it was a wellness center. I had, some health concerns when I was younger. The doctors are like, you could never have kids. There was a lot of things going on with me. And I turned to holistic health for myself personally first. And when I had gone back to the doctors and, what was going on, they're like, well, that's gone. I'm like, what's gone? I'm like, what do you mean it's gone? So then I was like, what happened? So I went back to, it was a Reiki practitioner, and I literally took her by the shirt and I'm like, what did you do to me? Why did that work? I don't understand. And, she gave me this whole lowdown of what it was. And I became this sponge, literally this sponge of, I needed to learn all there was to learn about it, because if a doctor's telling me it's an incurable disease and, you just have to live with it. Yet this holistic option, where I was going to have surgery after surgery, and this holistic option, no surgeries, and it's gone and we're good. Everybody should know. Everybody on the face of the planet should know. So I learned everything. I spent years studying to become not only a Reiki master teacher. There's Usui, Karuna, and Shambhala. So I studied, like I said, for a long time. And then I also did craniosacral therapy and became a craniosacral therapist through the Neurovascular Institute. And then just anything energy-wise, anything energy. So I incorporate that into my everyday all the time. That's just how I live. And as far as here, what I love about JGS is they will incorporate holistic here. They allow that, where a lot of places don't. For some reason, they're like, it's got to be, allopathic or homeopathic. And when I had my wellness center, and I went back and forth full-time, full-time, part-time, and it was perfect when I had my kids. I could just bring them to the center, put them in the yoga room with, Teletubbies on a little, TV, and they were good. I could still do clients. But I remember really thinking I need to make sure that this, because I went to school for accounting, so it's black and white. There's no gray. So I needed to make sure that what I was doing was science-based. So then I had to study even more, because you get the, airy fairy part of it, which I didn't want any of that. I'm much more concrete. And then knowing that doctor's offices were going to refer to me, I needed to make sure that what I was doing was concrete. So when I came here and when I was, talking about what it was, and they're like, that's great. Do you have any, can you bring that here? Can you do it here? I trained CNAs, nurses to do Reiki. We have sensory rooms where we have quiet times and we do aromatherapy. We do reflexology. I bring in my students, right? And they could actually do Reiki on the clientele at Ruth's house and the nursing home. I mean, it's phenomenal that they allow the combination, because it really is both. It's not one or the other. It's the combination of both, integrative.
So you are very high energy.
I've been told that once or twice.
And during the lockdown, I mean, how were you able to get that energy out?
Zoom. So I'll tell you, and COVID, right? I mean, COVID was tragic for a lot of people, and I understand that, but I'm of the mindset, and I'm very positive, and I'm very glass half full, where I always look at the gift, even in a tragedy. And the gift was the widespread, how widespread we could get. So now, I've got the Wellness Center, Intentional Calm on the side. I do my classes, I do my workshops, and I've got students in Washington State on a class with people from Florida and North Carolina and, local. I would have never even thought that would be possible if it wasn't for COVID. So we did a lot of training. I like to study, I like to read. So I did a lot of classes. I did a lot of online classes, which was really kind of fun. And I always like to better myself. And I kept myself very busy. And like I said, I came to work every day. So it didn't look a whole lot different besides the networking piece. And I can't hug people and I can't touch people. So that was different. But like I said, I've got, my husband and my two sons that were home from college. We really made the best of it. We really did make the best of it.
Is there anything you would have done differently?
I don't think so.
That's the glass half full coming through right there.
Yeah. No, I really did what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, with who I wanted to do it with. Yeah.
And that's a good segue to my last question, because I know you got some time constraints. You're just back from vacation, but What advice would you give the next generation of leaders?
To stay true to yourself. Don't get caught up in minutia. To stay focused and clear, because discipline equals freedom.
I think that's great advice for anybody. The generation.
Yeah.
Marianne, thank you so much for joining me for coffee. It was such a pleasure to talk with you.
This was very nice. Nancy, thank you so much for having me.
We will absolutely see you in person soon.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.